Forgive me for going so long here this morning, and we have communion yet. There are times when you feel like you can break up a sermon, and sometimes you feel like you can't. This was one of those times. But we do want to give you an opportunity to interact. Who has the first question? We ask you to raise your hand and wait for the microphone if you have a question. Don't think so. We have a question here.
Okay. We do still think that people who are injured or affirmed, there's something wrong with them, like spiritually, like, ooh. We say ooh all the time. I'm just going back to, even in high school, there was this girl, and I remember going down the stairs with her, and there was something wrong with her right eye. And we were alone, and I said to her, well, hey, whatever happened to your eye? Why is it like that? She said, oh, I injured it and all this stuff. And she went into the long thing. And we got to the bottom of the steps, and I said, oh, see you later. And then she stopped me as I was walking away, and she said, hey, wait a minute. I just want to thank you for asking, because most people just look at me and turn their heads away and walk away. And we can't do that to people. We have that. So my talking to strangers has gone back a long way. So, but we do think it's some kind of a sin, and we don't want to associate it with that, do we?
We have, of course, I mean, in a Hollywood culture, we're going to obsess over the beautiful. But what I hope we see when we're admiring the beautiful is that when it comes to spiritual sickness, I don't see a deeper nor more disgusting, smelly cesspool than Hollywood itself. The center of all the beautiful people. A lot we could say about that. I hope, just to take off on that a little bit, I hope when you see someone that's different like that, I have found that they do appreciate just being asked very directly. What happened? So real quick what happened when I was in college. I had a choir. We used to go on choir tours for 10 days, and we'd have a roommate. And my roommate, his name was Tony, and Tony had been shot when he was 10 years old in the back, and so his legs legs just didn't work well at all. And it was kind of an interesting thing. We went to one particular house, Tony and I. And the house itself was not real special. And the gentleman who lived there, husband and wife, he had a real strong Southern accent. Now, I didn't check to see if he had a transmission in the bathtub, so I could really place him as a serious redneck. But he had some of the other stuff going on, okay? You know, the kind that we would like to stereotype as an insensitive, uncaring guy. And he met up with Tony, saw him walking, and you know what he said to Tony? He said very directly, he said, what happened to your legs, young man? He was the only man I ever saw ask, and Tony explained what happened to him. And I saw, as Tony was explaining, thought he didn't want to talk about it. Tony did want to talk about it, and he did want people to understand what happened to him. He told about how he'd been shot, how he was with some other kids who had robbed the store, and the store owner came out shooting, and Tony got hit. He shouldn't have been with those kids, and he knew it. He knew it at the time, and knew in the future. But this idea that we saw today is somebody sinned. Please, let's not do that. I think we have another question.
Concerning the sins of the father.
The father and mother, you mean, who didn't want to associate with the son?
I'm talking about the sins of the father, the man being blind, because they're asking about if the parents sinned, that's why he was blind.
Yeah.
Well, we do see in the Old Testament where generations sin and then the Lord curses the next generation, or the next generation is punished because the first generation. So I'm just wondering, where's the distinction there?
Yeah, we do know that happens. And we do know that God does curse generationally. He does that. He's God. He can do that. The problem comes when we decide what curse he's given and why that curse has occurred. Or even if it is a curse. For example, this man who was born blind today, was he cursed? Why did it happen? No one knew there, right? And Christ did explain why it happened, that the works of God might be made manifest in him. And in that whole chapter, there's only one person. A lot of people involved there. It's a difficult chapter to read. Think of all the people involved. All the Pharisees, the neighbors, and his parents. 3 groups of people in that passage. Of those 3 groups of people, who are the only one that we know from the passage? Maybe others later. But who is the only one in that passage who experienced the manifested work of God? Who was the only one? That was the blind guy. The only one. So yes, God does do this. But no, we don't know. Our job is to say that God can and will do this. But we don't know exactly why every single time. That's not our job to say, if we don't know. Who else has a question? We got one right here. Right here in the front.
Joel, you said early in your sermon that we never see anyone going off on a mountaintop to commune with God.
You thinking of Elijah?
Well, and Christ, and we're called to get alone
Yeah.
with and pray, and,
Right.
and commune with God. I mean, what were you going after there?
So how do we do this?
Yeah.
My experience, go back to John, 1 John, where one of the things that John says is if you don't love the brethren, you don't love Christ. And so if your job, if your task then is to get away from all the, if your object is not to get along with God, but to get away from his people, then that's the distinction I would make right there. Right, you don't want to be with his people, you're just trying to be alone. You see, these, Elijah, it's kind of a different story, but yeah, Christ did obviously go alone on the mountaintop to pray, and his disciples come to him, and it doesn't seem to be much of a problem. The people that I'm talking about that don't want to be in a church, if you go out to them, it's a real problem. You're the last person they want to see. Yes, a lot more we could say about that.
Jesus did break the Sabbath because he mixed up the dirt, right? And he
It's true, he spit. I'm thinking more of the steps that he took. That was more their thing. So I don't know if they had a prohibition on steps you could take.
Oh, okay.
They didn't have a prohibition that I know of on whether or not you could spit in the ground.
But he was consistently breaking the Sabbath because, I mean, their Sabbath, the men's
Right.
rules.
Their idea of it. I think that he consistently did it. I think the most obvious case is the case of the withered hand in the synagogue. Now that's one where you really can't nail him for anything because he did tell the guy to stretch out his hand. He didn't say, I healed you. He just said, stretch out your hand. And he stretched out, it was as whole as the other. And everybody got really angry at him. So there he's just talking. And
Well, he healed too.
well, they
He
knew.
didn't say he healed. But
Right, that's right. He didn't say be healed. He didn't do anything like that. He just said stretch out your hand. So there's the case. And that's an interesting case because I think that's the only time where it says, I think it's in Mark, where he got angry. And we know he got angry other times, but that's the only time where it says that he looked on them with anger, which is not what we talked about this morning, but we're told to be angry and sin not. Now in our politically correct Christian culture, we're told that if we're angry, that we're judging and we should never be angry. But Christ was angered that these people in that synagogue would be much happier with the man the rest of his life if he had a withered hand than if he had it healed by Christ. That would make them happier. He was angry. And I think we must love Christ for that. That's a wonderful thing about Christ. That kind of thing made him angry. What a great Christ.
righteous anger is definitely Christianly, politically incorrect in this day and age.
I just wish it wasn't so Christianly incorrect. I just wish it wasn't. But it is.
I know.
It is. And our marching orders do not come from the Bible. As far as I can tell, they come from the UN. Honestly. Honestly. That sounds crazy, That's all I can conclude.
They've been putting up flyers in my little mail room for gay pride, 2 things God hates. So I've been tearing them down every time I see them. And, you know, I guess I have to admit, I was like a little reticent about doing that. And I'm like, why? I'm doing this because I'm trying to protect people from this big lie that's being promoted. And it's just sad that we have to cower, you know, instead of having that righteous anger and doing what we need to do to hold up the banner of truth in this dark world. So.
A lot more could be said about that.
And there is a gay pride thing in Phoenixville. on
Oh, thank you.
Saturday.
Yes, I meant to mention this. Thank you.
June 4th and June 5th.
Yes,
both
thank you.
days, starting at 12, and we're going to be there. Anybody wants to join us, we'd be
Okay.
happy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's June 4th and 5th. Now, the 4th is the day we're going down to, but if you, yeah, thank you. I meant to mention that. June the 4th is the day some of us are going down to the Ray Comfort Rally in D.C. But if you can't join us, don't want to join us, would rather join with the folks there in Phoenixville, C, Linda, and all you guys, right? See that? And also, July 30th, we'll be going out to the Pride Fest in Harrisburg also. Put that in your calendars. It's a Saturday. I'll be there as I was last year. And just a word on that. In the conversation that I said I had this morning with 3 Christians at work, they came at me with the old, well, homosexuality is not any different from any other sin. And I said, well, first of all, that's not true. All sins don't have the same consequence. If I steal the toothbrush from my wife, I can perhaps boil it in hot water and give it back to her. But if I shoot her dead, different consequences. I said, but secondly, and this kind of conversation, you'd be surprised how often it's really lost on modern Christians. It really is. But I said the second thing is, I don't see anybody out there in an adultery pride parade. I don't see them out there in a theft pride parade. I don't see them out there in a murder pride parade. But I do see them in the pervert pride parade, so that's different, don't you think? Didn't say it quite like that. But I definitely said it. And I got the deer in the headlight look, of course.
With the sex,
Of course I did.
you're involving somebody else, that's right.
And you can't undo it. You can give what you stole back, but you can't undo things. All right. Thanks for your kind attention this morning. We've gone way over, and we want to certainly enjoy the Lord's table here this morning. So I thank you all certainly for your kind attention.